Gojira indeed. Pig. Indeed. Hello. Hello, Pig. I think Pig's the only one here right now, so hello, Pig. What is going on? Oh my god. Oh. I was out today and I got very tuckered out by the time I had made it back home. So, I'm a little eepy, but you know what? We're gonna fix that with a nice old stream. Good old stream. Yeah. I mean, there's not really. What more do I say about just I want to draw Godzilla? Man likes big lizard. Matthew Broderick. Is that the MonsterVerse one? I'm gonna be real. I can be happy for MonsterVerse fans. I'm not necessarily one of them. Tuckered, more like puckered in my butt. Oh no. At the same time, Godzilla can and should have good human characters. Was a 91. Most of the granted, I have seen. I think I don't know if I ever saw 2014, but I saw King of the Monsters, which got pretty silly. But I don't know. Like, I can appreciate it. I'm just like, eh. This isn't necessarily like, you know, anything. It's just kind of American action movie with Godzilla in it, you know? The first American attempt at making a Godzilla film in the early 2000s was so bad that they distinguished that specific creature as a different monster from Godzilla and killed it. Had Godzilla kill it. So that might be the one you're talking about. That one's name was just Zilla. So I'm trying to get through the original Godzilla films. Since I don't think I'm going to be able to see -1 in theaters. Just because I've had a lot of personal life stuff going on. So at that point, I feel like it would be better if I just waited for streaming for myself. But in the meantime, I'm like, how about we watch the classics? Because the only one I've really seen. I saw, for some reason as a kid, there was a lot of Mothra stuff on a TV channel me and my sister watched. So I saw a lot of Mothra. And it was called, well, yes. Originally was just meant to be Godzilla, period. But it didn't go well. It didn't go well. But I did watch the first 2 Godzilla films ever. The other day. And first one, pretty dang good movie. I think it holds up in a lot of ways. I think the weirdest thing about it is pacing, which you can kind of just chalk up to old filmmaking. But in terms of the other old filmmaking stuff, I think the special effects hold up real well. I think they do a lot of good things with cinematography to make Godzilla, who at the time was just a guy in a suit, look legitimately very like imposing on a juxtaposed city structure. You know, something they weren't actually able to get, like, craft a Godzilla digitally or in real life that was as big as a city. But they used special effects to really nail it home. Second one I was digging a lot at the start, but it kind of lost me. And I think the reason was not because of Godzilla or the actors, ironically, but because the second one stars another monster called Anguirra. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And the relationship between that monster and Godzilla was just not interesting. They didn't do anything with it, really. And I think that's what ends up dragging the movie down. You can just do Godzilla again, kind of, honestly. And they have in a lot of ways, but... I'm telling this to the people in 1955 who made the second one. It's just like, maybe play it even closer to the vest than you're already doing. You know? Maybe you make it even more like the first one, and I'm okay with that. Oh yeah. I'm really gonna be getting into the other ones I want to watch are a lot more of the, I believe it's Showa. That's the original Godzilla era. And those are the ones I really want to sink my teeth into. The second kind of middle era of Godzilla is where he got super campy. And I saw someone on TikTok the other day talking about, like, yeah, Godzilla is camp and horror at the same time. And they're like, I love Camp Godzilla. And I'm like, I respect that. And I do like that Camp Godzilla exists. I prefer, you know, horror Godzilla, which is what I'm drawing right now. But, like, for example, I know for a fact that, like, in that middle part there, in between, like, you know, the 50s, 60s, and the turn of the century, Godzilla got very silly, and listen, I respect it. I mean, in part, it's because Japan was like, he's our mascot now. It's our big nuclear lizard, and we love him. So we're gonna make him more adorable, and I respect that. I like it when they make him a monster. So, and there are quite a few films. I mean, that's what the last two Japanese Godzilla films have been far more horror Godzilla than anything they've made since the original days of the creation. So I can't say, you know, that they're not doing me a favor, that they're not helping me out. Also, multiple times as I've consumed recommended Godzilla videos on my social media, someone brought up the square cubed law, and like, yeah, that's valid. I've had it explained to me. I don't fucking remember the wording. I get the gist of it, which is when you make something bigger, the internal area gets exponentially bigger, which makes it even harder to make it function and stand upright, like Godzilla. But I would reiterate with the fact that Godzilla is kind of hammered home to be this unstoppable force of just absolutely a unit. And if something was able to get as big as he was, it would have to be, or it would collapse under its own weight. So I am interested to see when they do these films in color in my old film rewatch. But I like a lot of what they did with the black and white with Godzilla. I think they made that noir lighting really work for him. Oh, you can work it, honey. It's so weird, because I would argue there's a lot of compliments I'd give to the making of Shin Godzilla that I could also give to the original one, which is wild because Shin is basically a remake of the original one, made for the modern Japanese audience. And with that, hi Riku, how you doing? And with that in mind, I think one of it is just the filmmaking techniques. Even though the first one was practical and Shin was CGI, I think they both kind of did the same thing where they were really smart for the most part about their framing and like the way they portrayed Godzilla, because I think they mostly use shots in both those films to try and drive home the idea that this is a real thing. You know, they're like, we are going to make sure that this looks good, and they did a good job in both films. Riku, do you watch a lot of Godzilla? And if so, let me ask you something first off. Do you prefer silly Godzilla or horror Godzilla? Also, mood meat. Also, meat. I believe you messaged me and I didn't respond yet, but I do appreciate it. Sometimes I'm just antisocial. Thank you for your happy Godzillas. Please, if there's any experienced Godzilla, if there's any... if anyone has an experience with Godzilla in bed in here, let me hear it. Because I'd love to hear from people who are a longtime fan of Lizard Boy. Again, I don't not like silly Godzilla. I'm glad he exists. I'm glad the endearing love for this guy was as such that they were like, you know what, we don't want to keep making him mean, but we're gonna keep making these movies. Time to make him a little silly. Time to make him a mascot. So I'm so unclear about Godzilla's gender. for all intents and purposes, Godzilla is gender fluid unto the T-Rexes in Jurassic Park, you know? Godzilla's sex and gender changes with the plot of the movie they currently have him in. Whether they are like, okay, well, we need Godzilla to have a child, so Mama Godzilla in this one. It's like, Nita. Also, I want to try something with this. So I haven't gotten to work on a lot of comic stuff recently. I was having a thing today. I believe they birthed it. I mean, so this is what I was talking about. That kind of like, I think 70s to 90s era of Godzilla was when they became exponentially more mascotty, and that's when they had Junior, and I believe they birthed it. It was not a separate Godzilla creature that came up and Godzilla was like, well, now I care for you as you are my own. No, I think it was just straight up Godzilla laid an egg. So the next 3 Godzilla movies I want to watch are Godzilla vs. Mothra, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and Godzilla vs. Hedorah. And I heard Hedorah is great, so I'm excited for that. And like I've said, I watched a lot of Mothra, so I'm interested to see that, because I do think Godzilla is largely a sci-fi franchise, but Mothra is straight up like a mythical entity, and I know that because in all the Mothra films I watch, what happens is 2 tiny twins. If you don't know Mothra, hold on for this. In the Mothra films, 2 tiny magical twins show up. And they tell the main characters, hey, Earth is in trouble. We need to summon Mothra. And then typically a baby Mothra shows up, loses the fight, and then comes back as Mothra. So I want to see if they do that in the Godzilla film. I know by the time Mothra clashed with Godzilla, it had 1 solo movie. So I'm interested to see what they do. Maybe the twins were a later thing, but I was watching a much later adaptation of Mothra. I do love Mothra. It's basic bitch shit, but if I had to pick a favorite kaiju, it'd be between Mothra and Godzilla. Godzilla is just the kaiju, but Mothra's great. Mothra's that queen shit. See, that's the other great thing. Depending on the day, on the film, Mothra and lesbian. Meaty me amore. I thought you were talking about this Godzilla I'm drawing currently. Pig. I thought you were just saying, ooh, thickums Godzilla. I was gonna respect that. Oh yeah, I didn't finish my thing, which was that. So I love how across all the iterations of Godzilla, they got those spikes that are so distinctly shaped, like just like. Sometimes they kind of sprout more, but the end is always this. Well, I was about to say, Pig, I haven't been able to work on comic stuff, but I'm gonna try and take a thing I noted from the fantastic fan animation, The Hidden Nightmares, where I feel like in a lot of anime and fictional material, when you want to draw something menacing, you draw glowing eyes that look like this. You know? Kind of rounded, very angular and slitted. But in that short, there's a particular monster, which is from the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, whose eyes are just big, round, and the pupils just expand. And it just kind of leaves a ring of light around it, which kind of emphasizes menace. So, I'm interested in that. I do think I should have Godzilla lit to one side. Have a good sleep, me. Appreciate you stopping by. Guys, did you know, I'm not joking, I just saw him. They might still be here. I just noted that I lost a follower in real time. I switched to Paige as Meat left. Like, well, that definitely just dropped. Fun. Anyway, what was I just thinking of? Godzilla. Oh, yeah. So, something I was noting as I was watching the original Godzilla. If you watch any clips of Godzilla using its breath attack in the original film, I want to make like a rib cage here that kind of is like this. Suppose I ought to head out before you watch Gamera. I have not. I'm not gonna lie, Riku. I feel like I'm just a little less interested in Turtle. Maybe it's because of my rabbit heritage, but I don't know. I know of Gamera, but just something about it. I've never had a thing to be like, I should go watch a Gamera film. But to finish what I was going to say real quick, is just that, it's pretty good. I'm gonna take Meaty's word on it. I will take note, Meat, that you are the first person to tell me that Gamera is super good. I learned about that from Death Battle, because they did Godzilla vs. Gamera, and they're all like, yeah, these are two massive kaijus, and even though kaijus love their crossover fights, these two have never done it. Never done it. But I was gonna say, watching the original Godzilla, something I noted, and you might know if you see clips of it, is that Godzilla's breath attack is like, it's like a mist. It's kind of like this. Oh, did I say meat? That's my bad. I'm sorry. Lose another follower. I apologize. Flow of thought made me not think of names. But Godzilla's breath attack in the original is like a mist thrower, basically. And what I think is interesting about that is, like, it's never really called out as, like, a flame attack. No one is ever like, hey, Godzilla used flamethrower. He just does it. And, what I was thinking is, like, they do drive home that, in that film, and granted, they drive home in a lot of films, that Godzilla is, like, this radioactive monster. And I just feel like the way it's portrayed in the original film, which maybe either got changed or mistranslated over time, is the idea that, like, it's not really like a laser beam attack. To me, it just kind of reads as, like, Godzilla, have a good sleep, Paula. Thank you for stopping by. To me, it just kind of reads as just, like, Godzilla is breathing so much radiation on you right now. And I say that because, like, for example, he breathes on these power lines / electric fences they set up to stop him. And they don't get knocked over like they're being impacted. They just start fucking melting. And when the more he uses it, the less stuff, like, is pushed, and the more it just either explodes or melts into a puddle. And I think that's neat. I think it's a good way of translating Godzilla being hyper radioactive by just being like, when he breathes, everything just starts shutting down. It's not to say I don't like the modern laser beam, though. Fucking everyone, I was just talking about how much I love Shin Godzilla, which up to a while ago was the main singular Godzilla film I've seen in full. And in Shin Godzilla just has one of the best laser breaths ever, so you gotta respect. Also, it's interesting because we were talking about the original American attempt at doing a Godzilla film over in the West, and in that one they try to hammer home that Godzilla is a T-Rex. And I didn't realize this was never part of the lore in the original. In the original, Godzilla is just a nondescript dinosaur that is dubbed Godzilla when they discover it. They're like, that's a dinosaur. I don't know which one it is, but fucking big lizard it is. So, kind of interesting. Godzilla is Godzilla, of genus Godzilla, family Godzilla, species Godzilla. Your long lost cousin. I hate to tell you this, Riku. Your long lost cousin had a bad film premiere, and then they killed him. I'm sure you'll do much better, though. You seem infinitely more likable. As protagonist or antagonist. I know. Poor me. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I should watch some campy. I don't know. Because I feel like Godzilla isn't necessarily the most serious thing to begin with. Though there's definitely, as those more menacing films I've mentioned, treat it with a more gravitas. But I feel like if I try to go into a Godzilla film being like, this is one of the silly ones, then I'll have a hard time. Because I'm like, did they even take it seriously? Were they even like, we're gonna try? I'm sure first off, that shouldn't really necessarily affect my watch. And secondly, I'm sure there's plenty of ones where they're like, we're making a silly Godzilla film, and we love doing it, and we're making it with love. So, I guess it just depends. Like I said, I'm making my way through some of the older ones already, so. But yeah. I said in a Discord, actually, I think it's interesting Because I think the same reason Godzilla works so well as an antagonist is also what helps him become a protagonist at times. In that, Godzilla, being a monster awoken and created by the nuclear bomb, is a consequence of humanity's hubris and troublemaking in the world, right? But conversely, that makes him something better than, like, King Ghidorah, who is like this fucking evil predator from outer space. So when it's like, do we deal with the consequences of our own actions, or do we face an even greater threat? I think it's cool when the troubles of familiar home win out over the greater than life demonic invasion. I love how I was like, yeah, but what about the Godzilla film they didn't take seriously? And then I was like, you know, King Ghidorah, the alien dragon from outer space, the demon god that the big lizard fights. That's the other thing. I do like it when they drive home the destruction of Godzilla, which they do very well in Shin and the original Godzilla. And I think it can be glossed over the more campier you get. Because at that point it's less about, oh no, oh the huge manatee, and more about watch this big lizard punch this guy, which is great. I said that and I got happy, so I can't complain. But if I don't see a family of a nuclear family, a nuclear family of 4 getting crushed in their own home, then how am I supposed to feel anything? Then how am I supposed to truly feel joy and emotion? I need a mother holding their child to get the roof caved in over them, which I've now seen twice. Or I don't feel anything. I think that's where you can start to drive home, you know, the seriousness of Godzilla. Because in many ways, if you kind of cut out, if you take the well-directed scenes of consequence in different Godzilla films and cut them together, without the context of Godzilla, it just reads as like a natural disaster has happened, right? They very much do that in the first one, where they show like basically a refugee area of people who were displaced and injured by Godzilla stomping on through. And that's a hey Zilla, what that mouth do? No. No. Breathe radiation. Oh. But yeah, I think that's a good way of being like, Godzilla does have its serious moments where it's like, oh, it's an allegory for the people of a country who suffer through the disasters, which is when the series is at its most artful. But at the same time, I want to drive home that the series doesn't have to be that. Because who am I to tell a series older and more successful than I'll ever be what to do with itself, how the fan should enjoy it, and what makes good cinema. I feel like that's kind of sometimes where I get a little like, I get the ick about people as they criticize some things. Admitting my own bias, stuff I like, is when they're just like, if you don't like this, you don't like good media, or this is definitively not good media. And I'm like, but how do you know what good media is, you know? Honestly, sometimes I think it's just a popularity contest, you know what I'm saying? I think what makes a good piece of media is just the amount of people who genuinely, unironically love it. So, for example, Twilight would not be on that list, because most of the enjoyment comes from irony. So. I wonder where Sonic falls on that list. I mean, we're listening to Sonic music, but you know, because if we define a good piece of media as something a wide berth of people like, for largely the reasons the creator intended them to like it, then does Sonic the Hedgehog, with his myriad of games riddled with issues, fit on that category? Because the fans, you know, I mean, they definitely like the characters is the thing, but is too much of it them projecting onto Sonic and not actually kind of looking at the games for what they are? Or is them enjoying the design and characters of the game warrant it being considered good media in and of its own right? Why do I get like this on stream? Is it better when I talk about poopy buttholes? Or when I get really introspective about the meaning of life and good art? Some say porque no las dos. Yo, spoiler warning for the Batman. Robert Pattinson's The Batman. I wonder how many Spanish speakers saw that coming. That the clue the Riddler left for Batman was purposefully bad grammar Spanish. And thus, when you say the words out loud, just kind of without thinking it's another language, you get a real clue. In my Lego Fortnite village. Oh my goodness, this is important. Man, I need to play Lego Fortnite. Lego Fortnite kind of makes me bummed because from what I've heard, it is really good. But I think I voiced on stream that I don't want... No, it might have just been in Discord. I don't want Fortnite to just become Roblox for so many reasons. And I think Lego Fortnite kind of seems like it could have been its own separate good Lego game. But then again, would it have been as free and widely accessible to people if it was developed separately by Epic or Lego? More questions. Do you think Godzilla's skin looks the way it does because he's a lizard? Or do you think it looks like that because he's deeply irradiated? Okay, let's get back to that for just 1 second. Not to undercut Fortnite. I love how the problem people have with Godzilla existing as a creature is the square cubed law, and not that he apparently survived several nuclear tests in the Pacific Ocean. Let me look up something. Bikini Atoll. Oh, I just looked up bikini. Well, I'm glad I didn't do that on stream. Bikini Atoll. It has radiation levels when you look it up. How many nuclear tests done at Bikini Atoll? Was it just one? Did they just do one and move on? 23. Okay. So people's issue with Godzilla existing is the square cube law, arguing a creature of his size could not support its own weight, let alone stand upright. Their issue is not, however, that apparently, by the time he has come ashore, he has been irradiated by the power of around 23 nuclear bombs. A force, I would argue, much more capable of destroying a living creature than just pure gravity and weight. That is something they point out in the original too, though. They're like, that thing can't come ashore. Fucking, it's only living right now because water and buoyancy and shit. It's like I did also learn that apparently Gojira came from the Japanese words gorilla and whale, of which I think Godzilla only resembles one of. But anyway, fucking, I think if Godzilla can withstand the bottom of the ocean and 23 nuclear bombs, then yeah, he can he can ignore the squared cube law all he wants. Now the other kaiju, other kaiju with varying origins, feel free to criticize one by one. You could, robbing it of its mystical origins, you could very well argue Mothra could never fucking exist. For so many reasons. One of it which being that, like, ancient giant insects were the size they were because the atmosphere was richer in oxygen and they could breathe through their skin as insects do easier. And something of Mothra's size, again applying the squared cube law, could never breathe through its skin sufficiently enough to feed its body. Which doesn't even get into, I mean, maybe the squared cube law doesn't apply so much with weight, given that it's a flying insect and thus would probably be like running on the bare minimum, to fly. Well, then that does question how it can fly. What you've done here is you've taken a creature so big people already have a problem believing it exists, and said, well, now this one can fly. And that definitely, like, I wouldn't blame anyone for raising an eyebrow at that. Some people are arguing if Godzilla can even walk. And now they're like, this one flies. And people are like, no, the fuck it doesn't. No shot. Not a chance. If that thing flies, I retire as a biologist. I also kind of crawl. I'm not trying to fucking suck the fun out of Godzilla. If anything, I'm trying to poke fun at the people who are just like, this is the problem. I'm like, it's wicked not. That's not the wildest thing happening here. But, to further go on, aren't like caterpillars and other like larvae, like maggots, aren't they just kind of sacks of fluid? How do Mothra larvae do? Mothra larva so big. And that's just a bag of liquid with a brain I don't think so, Mr. and or Mrs. That thing's gonna pop like a water balloon. To defeat this kaiju, I have a needle with me. A regular needle. This is gonna get gross quick, but it will also get the job done. So, you're welcome, Monarch. Also, I'm pretty sure a lot of people's problems are with like they're just going off base Godzilla, OG 1954 Gojira for their calculations, not even thinking about the somewhat failed, somewhat kind of cool Godzilla Earth, where Godzilla reaches infinitely taller than he ever has before. Size of small continent Godzilla, which is like Godzilla's the biological specimen there, because then they changed King Ghidorah into like this cosmic space laser entity. Shin Godzilla, they straight up say this thing is powered by a nuclear reactor, a biological nuclear reactor. Which I think rules. I need like a breakdown of fucking how a nuclear reactor works. And then I need to see if I can justify to myself if something could grow that in their chest. It's fun. It's a fun... Listen, I'm having fun here. If there's one thing I like, it's fictional science and lore. So yeah, being able to justify Gojira's existence is great. Also, to keep going on about people who are like, it's too big. As I've pointed out, there are people in the movies at many a time who say that. And they look like big nerds by the end of it. They put you in the film. And they made you look like a dork. You don't understand, you've already lost. And Godzilla has drawn themselves as the soy jack. Oh wait, no, as the Chad, and you as the soy jack. Oh, I made a mistake. I think what I should do is give it really small pupils now. Like, really just smaller. There we go. If I was coloring this, I'd put it in a... I'd make that bit a bit of gray. So you could kind of like subconsciously get it. But it wouldn't be obvious at the start. I was tempted while thinking about drawing Godzilla. Because I kind of wanted to go an in-between between like the classic design and something more modern. And something I've seen is someone being like, okay, let me try and draw Godzilla a bit more realistically. Like what he would look like if something evolved to be this big and stand upright. And they're like, I'm going to base this around penguins. Emperor penguins, pretty dang big. They stand upright on their 2 feet. And they waddle around like Godzilla does. So, this Godzilla will in fact be penguin-based. It wasn't actually penguin. It wasn't like if Godzilla was penguin. But he did kind of have the muscle structure of one. Just now a lizard. Uh, honestly, how about I think I should erase some of this snoot detail on the lit side, as you will typically do, drawing any other kind of face. Instead of that, I don't know if that's better. Here's the problem. Godzilla's got a lot of dimples and divots on him. Can be kind of a nightmare with shading and just kind of telling where everything, drawing in all that detail. Let me erase this. Maybe we put more of that on the shaded side, just to be like, hey, look at these divots. Hey, does anyone know what acne scars are? I don't. And when I had more acne, I'd pop pimples like the wazoo. That's a little gross, but listen, I'm just saying. I know people said don't pop pimples, but I did not care. I was like, here I go. It's so weird the dichotomy people have. Some people are like, I love seeing popping pimples online. And then they made a show about it on TLC. And some people are just like, you are a sick, sick freak. You will get out of my house. And listen, that's valid. That being said, it is kind of interesting to find out what makes up your common pimple, what have you, you know. I feel like there's lots of stuff in our day-to-day that we just kind of accept as like, oh yeah, that's just like gunk. That's just like, you know, dirt and junk. And I'm like, what really makes it up though? What's its composition? You know? You've just written this off as like some unimportant thing. But I'm like, how did this come into being? Just like Godzilla. I'm gonna make my brush bigger, and then I'm gonna draw a big line. If we get rated during the Godzilla stream, does that technically make it a mini Godzilla film? You know, Godzilla shows up, there's a raid. End of film. I don't think that's how Godzilla films work. I may have made this Godzilla even scarier than I meant to. I'm gonna roll with it though, if I'm being honest. You cannot stop me. I will not be stopped. He's just kind of like the parts of Godzilla that are black in the black and white bits are just kind of black. Let me try that. I'm gonna try just making part of the Godzilla just a stark black. He kind of has this like one lump going through his forehead, which I imagine was like the start of the spikes and everything. So we're just gonna do that. Oh, nope. I accidentally went over his eye. And I did not want to do that. Oh, that got... Doing it like this kind of made it look more Godzilla-y. Even though I want to make it scary, I do want to make it kind of recognizable to some of the films, you know? You can do that. You can make something far scarier than it was in its official appearance, while still making it very recognizable. Oh. I feel like comics will do that, you know? I'll be like, you know what? This thing we did before and it was kind of silly. Crank it up to 10. I want some kids to have nightmares about this one. We didn't sell it hard enough the first time. There's this one. So, my brother and me, which is a podcast I have watched for a long time now, they did a live show in Florida a while back. I think it was like pre-pandemic even. Maybe post. I'm not sure. I feel like pre. They were gonna pre, dude. And one of the younger brothers, well, the youngest brother. I like how it's like one of the, and it's like there's three of them. He talked about how like every fucking Disney ride has a scary part. He's like Tigger's Nightmare Zone, where he's like, "I'm gonna kill your son." It's very funny. Watching a Super Eye Patch Wolf video, he talked about the lack of horror in animation, and I would argue there's plenty of cartoons with like a scary episode, and honestly, if you made a collection of those, in a lot of ways that would be scary enough. You know, that would qualify in its own right. Fucking I love how SpongeBob's scary episode wasn't even like a Halloween or anything. They just had a butterfly. They just said, you know what? The thought of butterflies fucked up me. Which, granted, I kind of did when talking about Mothra, but we're... Listen, shut up about that. It's ingrained in me. I think Stefan Hillenberg or someone saw one close-up photo of a butterfly and was just like, I find that terrifying now. A sea sponge would find that terrifying. We are going to make kids scared of this now. No one has a choice in the matter. Nickelodeon, you're gonna let us do it. We are the highest rated show on the network, and at this moment in time, we're still kind of newish. So, you're gonna... It's happening. Truly a wild turn of events. Probably. What was Maestro about? Let me look that up real quick. Greg was in Discord earlier talking about some stop motion movie, and he's like, it's messed up. And I was like, oh no. Leonard Bernstein. Wasn't... Wait. Trom. Welcome. Isn't Leonard Bernstein the guy who John Mulaney's dad told him thought about gay things sometimes? Am I mixing that up? Was that in the movie? Not John Mulaney. Just maybe him being like, dudes. It's a Leonard Bernstein biopic. I see. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't think I've heard that. That's fair. Trom, I'm definitely more of a Godzilla man than I am a biopic fan, but I am sorry if Godzilla was rumbling on next to you. There was some bi stuff going on. That is bi behavior limited to only like I'm thirsting over two genders at the moment. You know what I mean? Or can you define any first, you as a bi person, not you, Trom, but just a person who is bi, can you define any behavior of attraction to anyone, regardless of if there's multiple genders present, as bi behavior, because you are bi and you're currently being attracted to them? Important questions. Someone get juice in here. I think I said on one stream, it's like, Juice has a lot of stuff, and I'm not sure all of it. I just try to be respectful as they update me. Let me at them real quick. I'm gonna do it. They are going to be confused. They are going to be upset. Gonna be like, okay, what the fuck are you doing? You love people. That is true. I do think it's fun. Do you think, this is not on you to think and decide this, Trom, but do you think, like you know how there's a very common thing of just like historians will just assume two people of the same gender were friends, even though if they were clearly, very clearly gay for each other? Do you think that's going to decrease in coming years? Or do you think just people thrusting assumptions of a long gone historical figure's life is just a forever thing? It's like, regardless of evidence, people just think what they think. I mean, I say it like that, and it's just like, yeah, Cahill, that's how it works. That's how it's worked forever. How far back are we talking? I mean, if we're saying, like, people aren't willing to say Alexander Hamilton was a little gay because of how he talked to Lawrence. Like, that's a pre-established thing, right? But are you saying like precedent we set starting now, or are you saying how far back the historical figures go? Because I would argue it doesn't really matter how far back the historical figures go, you know? As long as we have the proper evidence to kind of inform us about their romantical life, then... I don't know. I'm not. I like hearing about history. I'm not a professional history nerd. It's weird to think about, though. I mean, there are some people who will be like, I want certain stuff about me down for the record, so everyone knows it in the future. For example, fucking Freddie Mercury wanted the whole world to know he was bi by the time he was gone, you know? That man was out there doing it like no other. And I'm proud of him. But some people are like, I don't care. Leave me alone. I was gonna say how many people think this looks like Gojira yet, but we're still missing some kind of key elements of the old lizard. It'd probably be easier than for historical. For those that... Yeah. I mean, also, we have better records keeping now. Does Godzilla -1 have tiny ears? I think he has, like, tiny ears, like, right here. Like, those are his tiny ears. But yeah, we have better kind of record keeping now, on top of the fact that plenty more people are open-minded, you know? So far less have to worry about them going down in history as any given thing is like a negative mark, which is good. I say, I always like to remind people, you know, like, it's understandable. There's lots of stuff we still need to do, but never let people convince you that the world's the worst it's ever been. Some things are bad, but you know what? We've done a lot of good stuff also that has managed to make certain things better. Irrevocably better going into the future. If that makes sense. You know? Yeah. Exactly, Trum. You're getting me. It's like, you might be like, well, Cahill, what if stuff goes backwards? And it's like, you can't uninvent penicillin. You know? Some stuff you can't put back in a jar, no matter how much you're trying to. And oh lord, have I tried. Mr. Pookie Dookie. Why did you need to know my orientation? Yes, why? Because we were talking about Leonard Bernstein, and it was brought up he was bi, and then I was talking about bi people, and I was talking about, like, what qualifies as bi activity. I'm so sorry to interrupt you as you're playing games with like, real friends. I'm sorry to bring you into stream right now. I'm sorry. But I was like, is bi activity just thirsting over any gender so long as you're bi? Or is it thirsting over both genders at the same time? Like in Hades? Is being bi just playing Hades? I have to know. Is there more than one romance scene in Hades with the respective love interest? I kind of hope so. Because you have one the other than both. And given how much replayability that game has, I would hope they have it so it's just like, you know, in Baldur's Gate, it's like, hey, sugar, give me a kiss when you manage to romance someone. Anyway, Jews, please go enjoy Lethal Company. I'm sorry to have interrupted. I just needed to know. Before Sonic Colors started playing. Okay. Juice might be gone now. And since they're gone, let me say something. So Juice really likes Miguel O'Hara from Across the Spider-Verse, right? And in that movie, you might know that Miguel O'Hara has an artificial intelligence, a legit artificial intelligence, not the BS they're peddling right now, assistant, and she's kind of a diva, and it's great. In the comic, she's modeled after Marilyn Monroe. I'm trying to decide. Is Miguel O'Hara modeling his AI companion after Marilyn Monroe, like, a sign of heterosexuality? Or does he just have taste? He's like, yeah, I like women, and it's just like, Because trust me, after that movie, lots of different people would be very happy if Miguel O'Hara liked lots of different people, if you know what I'm saying. He does have a dead wife and children. Not in the comics, though. In the movie. I don't think he had a wife and children at all in the comics, ever. You gotta love when they need to give a character motivation, and regardless of what the comics say, the movie gets dead wife. Oh, my dead wife. Ah, beans. Ah, beans all nuts. I just realized I had the chat closed. Mostly. I had Discord open and my chat closed. Oops. But regardless. Yeah, dead wife. Beans, dead wife. I think this is looking more Godzilla with the spikes. I'm gonna get rid of the center one though, because I kind of did that before I knew what I was doing. Is John Wick based on anything? Because, so, typically, when I see movie villains, like when someone's like, here are great villains, or what have you for movies, I will see many a character largely taken from books. And while I recognize how much singular actors, like Heath Ledger, might contribute to a character's portrayal in any one given film, there are many of them who are just made great because of the source material and what they pulled from it, you know? Really loves his dog. I mean, that's not a book or source material. That's just a kind of a universal experience, ain't it? But with that in mind, that's why I submit to you that in terms of movie villains, one of the greatest of all time is Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. Design, character, action, that baby's got it all, and he was not pulled from a singular book. He is taken from a mythology, if you will. But, you know, Davy Jones was not cut whole cloth from a pre-established story in a different medium. He was largely made originally for the Pirates of the Caribbean movie franchise. And his motivation isn't dead wife, it's living wife. He said, aw, live wife. He said, aw, beans, guys, my wife is alive. I hate that. I really hate it when my wife's alive. She makes me feel things, and most of those things are sad. I love Pirates of the Caribbean. Can't you tell? It has largely influenced my life. It might influence my life. Mostly an original film. I can take that. Listen, there are plenty of films, quote-unquote, based around a thing. But then they're not really at all anything like that thing. They just kind of, you know, take the title. Or some kind of core concept. And then the movie has to go like, hey, person who made this first, we'd like to make this into a movie, but we just kind of want to do our own thing. So can we do all the legal stuff and say it's based around your shit, but then not do that? And the person's like, I mean, I'd like $1 million right now. So yeah, sure. It was interesting. So I've discovered one channel, Pointless Hub. I don't know much about the guy personally, but he makes funny films. I mean, funny videos about funny films. And he made one about World War Z, the Brad Pitt movie, which I didn't know was based on a book. He was like, it is nothing like the book. And the author of that book said, I actually love the movie because it wasn't anything like my book. So I didn't have to worry about that, you know? This actor kind of went from being like, I gotta worry about how good this is in comparison to the thing I worked really hard on, to, this is nothing like the thing I made. I don't really have to care what this is like at all. So then he can just kind of sit back and be like, hey, I like this. I like a Brad Pitt movie every now and then. I can dig this. Yeah, they used the name I made up. It's not really my problem. So I didn't know that. I think that's a very interesting take from that author. I kind of like it. What was I thinking of? I heard Roald Dahl didn't like any film to be based off of his works, but I've also heard he had issues. He maybe wasn't the best personally, no matter how many delightful children's book he wrote. So maybe that's where you can say he doesn't have taste, you know? It's like, well, you're kind of not a great person in general, so we don't really have to worry about catering to you. Yeah, you wrote the book, but that was a formality. Ask the guy who won't I can't talk. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I really don't know how much of this I'm gonna get done tonight. We haven't even been live for that long, have we? That's nice. It's nice to be like, man, I don't know how much I'll get done today, and then you look over and it's just like, oh, stream barely even halfway done, if that. Depending on length of stream and what happens. I feel like typically the reasons I'll end stream around the time I do is less of I physically can't fucking stream anymore, and more along the lines of I'm a gambling man and so far stream's been going okay, but I'm not gonna bet on that going on any further than this. You know what I mean? Like, we had a little hiccup there, but streams held itself together. It's like, I don't think that's gonna last, though. Noticing Godzilla designs having ridged heads makes me want to ask Godzilla what it's like to have a ridged head. It's like, hey Godzilla, what's it like having so many wrinkles in your forehead? Kind of. More so Trombone Warrior. What I'm saying is along the lines of if I were to call it a finished project that I'm putting up on my VOD channel, which is sometimes a determining factor, it's like, okay, this has been good. I don't know how much I can keep it up for another, 2 hours. So I just cut it. I'm like, I think that was a good stream all around. I'm satisfied with the experience. I think it makes a good experience on the VOD channel. So we leave it as is. I think I need to edit the cheeks. I think Godzilla needs to get a little cheeked up right now. I think I need to make Godzilla a little cheeky. I don't know if anyone who streams can relate, Maybe streaming is one of those super personal things. And everyone's experience differs depending on what kind of person they are. If I'm gonna have his jaw look like that, it needs to be noticeably bonier. You know? Round out those edges, rough them up a bit. I think I've made this little bit too wide. I will say one thing. So having done digital art for a while now, after being a purely like traditional artist for so long, it's like I get why people like the Command Z function so much, to be able to go back and make sure what they've done is what they're happy with. But at the same time, I kind of think they oversell it, you know? They're like, I can't live. I can't do anything without my precious my Commander Z. How could I? Because I do think one of the best advice you can give about art is just being not afraid to start over when you're just like, I don't like how this looks. But with that in mind, it's definitely easier to do digitally than when you have to worry about, you know. Because if I was doing any of this kind of line art by hand, by actual hand, then we would not be using ink. We would just be doing pencil, and then it would be only after I'm happy with the full pencil drawing where I'd be like, okay, go over it in ink, and then it'll look good. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna look something up real quick. Oh, this is what I'm looking for. He's got more cheek here, but I can make that work. So we're gonna leave the mouth and most of the chin. Kind of take, you know what? How about we take most of this out? Since this is pure black, I kind of just gotta like fully erase bits of it. There we go. I was making this Godzilla more menacing, but I guess now I must give him cherubic cheeks. Nope. I brought up a little menu there. I don't know how much that reads over stream. I don't know what OBS does and does not capture as I'm using CSP. And I don't have a second monitor, so... Oh. I did not bring up the sketch. Make Godzilla look kawaii. I don't think that's possible, given the face I've chosen to keep for him. But, you know, we'll do something with him. I'm also gonna get rid of that real quick. Okay. I think I've legitimately done kind of good work with the cheeks and this bit. Okay, okay. And then this. And then they, what I failed to note is he kind of just has eyebrows. Reptile, just like, you know, platy eyebrows. I didn't account for that. I didn't think about it. So that's on me. Godzilla senpai. Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I've heard that Japan kind of has mascots for everything. I feel like to a degree they've adopted Godzilla as a mascot for the fucking country, for the entire country. So that's why it's kind of just like, yeah, campy, silly Godzilla should exist. Because Godzilla is a creation of the country. And as such, if they're like, we want to make him look cute now, they have every right to do that. You know? Okay, yeah, this is... I think this is much better. I am going to get rid of this little thing right now. This looks more like a Godzilla to me. The problem is, I think I'm trying to mix and match parts of his almost mascot-y characteristics that have persisted through multiple designs. With like the more realistic, scary looking ones where he's just a dinosaur. Just like a rugged, messed up looking dinosaur. The one thing I was trying to keep, which I might have failed on, which might be why I was unhappy with it, was that he kind of has a, like this flatter disc-shaped face, you know? He's almost not like 100%, he doesn't really have a roundy head as much as he has a, like a flat, like his head got squished a little. Just kind of sits on top of his neck like a hamburger. But A, I like that. And B, I think it's very... just kind of... it's very distinct. I was noting that rewatching Shin Godzilla. I was like, man, Godzilla's head is not like round. It's not round. Like he's got a hamburger up there. Sir, what are you doing? Well, sir, why do you have a hamburger? Why do you have a hamburger on your head? I think that's about right. I'm not gonna do that one for one, but basically make it part of the sketch and be like, okay, try and make him a little symmetrical. He's messed up, but it's not like he's missing half his face. This ain't no Two-Face Batman shenanigans. Remember when that happened? Remember when Harvey Dent was like, man, I lost half my face. Time to be a supervillain. Time to be a giant lizard destroying Gotham. Why don't you have a hamburger on your head? That's a great question. That's a delicious question. I sure would like to. I want to try... So I've kind of accepted that, like a Beyond Burger would never fully taste like a real meat burger, a real boy. But I am still... I only really tried one once. I would like to try them again. Except here's the thing. I want like a vegan Baconator. Because I love how Baconator tastes. I love the sauce. I love the bacon. And I love it all on the burger. And you might say, K-Hall, well, what's the fucking point? And it's like, well, the point is that pigs and cows are pretty cool, and they take a lot to farm and maintain. And just being able to fucking make this a rough approximation out of that, just pretty close approximation of that out of soybeans, would be healthier for everyone. So that's why my efforts don't die in vain. And I should really get on that. Get on trying to make like find the materials to make it. Have you tried that before, Riku? I mean, it's good to hear good reviews. The way I see it, it's like, it doesn't have to be meat for one, you know? It just kind of has to match a certain savory feel. And then we can all call it a day. Because for a lot of reasons, it would just be better. And if you're okay with just like, okay, as long as you're not going full carnivore out here, in which case I have questions for you. Are you Godzilla? It's okay, at least. I tried it. Well, here's your problem, Trombone. I'm not gonna blame the impossible part of that. I'm gonna blame that you got a Whopper. Listen, I'm not saying that that there's other fast food burgers that like blow stuff out of the water. It's fast food no matter how you shake it. But I'm not the biggest on Burger King. So if I'm trying an Impossible Burger, they will not be my first stop. Maybe if I like Impossible Burgers, and I'm like, well, they're the main establishment that are selling them and are doing them okay, then we can talk. Food R&D. That sounds cool. But yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I've heard fake bacon or fakin is pretty good. Like, it's pretty... That's much closer to the bacony taste, which I think is the most important taste you have to emulate when trying to do fake meat. Bacon. I think bacon has the most distinct and flavorful taste of the meats. But like, with that in mind, that plus like ketchup and mayo, like that's all I really need. And as long as the Impossible Burger has a somewhat burgery good taste to it. Good is far more important than burger even. That I'm more than willing to accept it. Okay. This is looking like a Godzilla now. Now that's a Godzilla. He needs his little ears. You know, if you had asked me, does Godzilla have ears, I probably would have said no. But looking at it, let me just look up Godzilla. Let me look up Godzilla and let me see how many of them have ears. Okay. The first one is -1. This one is the 2014 one. He might have ears. That's a long shot. I can't tell. Okay, I don't think the MonsterVerse one has ears. Original Godzilla has ears. Wait. There is something there. There's like ridges. That being said, I'm not too wild on MonsterVerse's design of Godzilla. You know? I think he's very rectangular. I'll be frank with y'all. Got American 2014 Godzilla, quite literally a square. I don't mean that in the insulting way. I mean, the man has corners on him. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with this information. It really, and remember how I just said, like, Godzilla's got a burger on his head? Yeah, that messes you up when you realize how square the American one is. It's just like, this man went from jagged and kinda rounded to just fucking square. Yeah. I noticed that, Riku. The main thing I noticed from trying an Impossible Burger when I cooked one up one time was that it was crunchy. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I can definitely see how for some people that'd be a big thing and the biggest hurdle. I wonder if there's anything you can kind of inject into it, you know? In the process of making a batch of Impossible Burger meat, being like, okay, and this is purely for the juice. This is quite literally the juice we're adding in right now. So. Oh well. I'm sure smart people will figure it out eventually. And if Riku is one of those smart people, I'm sure they'll figure it out even faster. Because Riku's a cool person. I wanted to say cool guy, but I know not everyone's gender is for the bit. My gender for the bit. Don't sell yourself short, Riku. You're great. Much like Bugs Bunny, my gender is for the bit. Whatever would make it funniest at that moment. I feel like I've tried on high heels at least once in my life. But I cannot remember when that was. I think it was kind of like a haha look at me kind of thing, as opposed to actually trying them on. But let me give them another try. Resident Evil taught me that if you wear high heels, you can make people's head explode when you kick them. That's about it. That's enough. Riku, speaking personally, as someone who goes up to people and are like, yeah, I'm in the creative field. You'd be surprised if people are like, I have no idea, nothing in my brain, nothing's going on. I'm just like, oh, come on. They're like, nope. I remember how Juice was in chat one time. I was talking about like romance novels and stuff, and they're like, I'd make one, but I would just kind of do what everyone else is doing. Or like, you know, stuff I like to read. And it's just like, yeah, that's what everyone does. You know? At the end of the day, there is no big secret to being creative. It's just how much work are you willing to put in to kind of make what you're creating good. Or like, something's wrong here. And I think what's wrong is that this part of the jaw is not thick enough compared to that part of the jaw. Bop. Ba-da-bum bum. Bum. Godzilla does jaw exercises for sure. Okay, so there's some movie series and movie like worlds that they set up for different films where Godzilla is a known quantity that lives in the world, right? Not contained, not otherwise kind of like disposed of at the moment. Like Godzilla came ashore at one point, and then they're like, well, we couldn't fucking stop him, so he went back into the sea, and then they hadn't seen him for a while. You know, like the movie ended that way, so they were just like, okay, guess Godzilla's just out there. We'll see you again sometime, buddy. I was thinking about this. Godzilla would most likely be eating, like, beluga and killer whales, right? Like, he's eating meat is the thing. And with that in mind, he's got to eat the biggest, fattiest creatures around, which would only be whales. I think every now and then, Japan / California just kind of has to contend with, like, well, there's a chunk of whale. Godzilla's probably somewhere around here. Or the giant squids. Well, the way I see it, I don't even think giant squids would be enough for the big guy, you know? He'd be like, no, I need more than that. You know, it's like, yeah, that was fine, but I need... Because whales got, like, that blubber and stuff, you know? Like, if nothing else, I'm not even seeing it as, like, nutritional value. I'm just like, Godzilla needs fucking fuel to pump into his veins. And nothing gives him more raw material than the whales. So then there's just, like, fucking... Everyone's just like, well... Not only is it sad because we have half a whale wash ashore, but we know Godzilla's somewhat near. That'd be a wild world to live in. But I mean, like, that's even what, like, MonsterVerse is, like, establishing, you know? MonsterVerse is like, no, we are very purposefully they're not like, we made a Godzilla film. Maybe if it does well, we make another one. They're trying to set up a world where those kinds of monsters exist in life. And with that in mind, that means they would just have to contend with, like, okay, fucking, we know Godzilla's in the ocean somewhere. And we just found half a whale. I guess he's around. Yeah. I mean, that is kind of usually the lore, if I'm not mistaken. Again, newer Godzilla fan here. But I think most of the time, if he's not contained and or presumed dead in some way, Godzilla is typically like, I'm gonna nap that one off. They threw a lot of junk at me this time. Fucking these people folk, they just like, they went at me this time around. It was wild. Wasn't sure I was gonna make it out of that one, so I'm napping this one off. And then someone does something stupid. And then Godzilla's like, hey, are you doing something stupid? And they're like, yes, we are. And then he's like, I'm gonna wake up now. And they're like, oh no. I think that's very typically more along the lines of when he's a... when he's a reoccurring thing. I think that's kind of the missed opportunity of the very second Godzilla, you know, not just the relationship with the second monster, which felt a little wasted, but also, I do think there's kind of precedent for, like, Godzilla coming back and being this, like, ever-present threat that they have to continue to deal with, because if he represents nukes, then, like, that's a thing, you know? So Oppenheimer. Top 2 films this year are Oppenheimer and Godzilla. Oh, the irony. But, you know, Godzilla, like, you make a nuke, it's like, oh no, nukes exist now. You make a Godzilla, oh no, Godzilla exists now. Barbie, yeah, but Barbie isn't funny, because the Genevai Kuchi asked this to me the other day. He was like, what about Barbie? And I'm like, Barbie was great. I loved seeing Barbie. She doesn't have to do with the nuclear bomb. I don't know how to tell you this. I posted this in Discord, because it's not even like Godzilla -1 is like a Godzilla. You know, it's not like, okay, Godzilla's around again. No, it's like, I was checking this up because, again, I like Shin Godzilla, so I was like, is this connected to that? Like, no, it's not connected to that. It's connected to, like, the 50s. That's why I started watching them. It's like, this is Godzilla hits Japan again, except it's not during, you know, it's not during now. It's back when he started in the 1950s. And we're in a Great Depression. Japan, I don't know if you know Japan history, says Japan, but we were having a Great Depression at that time. So people are not happy to see this thunder lizard marching around again. Because they're like, I can't afford a new home. So that's in the 50s, which means it's not like a nuclear bomb. It's like, oh no, it's the nuclear bomb. The big one. The big one. You know the ones I mean. They name drop that in the OG Godzilla. Like, it's a very common fact to know nowadays that Godzilla is based off the nuclear bomb. But in the OG, one of the main characters is like, I can't believe this is happening. I barely got out of Nagasaki. I'm like, oh! You just wore it all on your wrist, huh, Japan? Good for you. I say Japan, it was the studios who made the film. Studio and director and writer and yada yada yada. The littlest of boys. But... so... that makes it funnier. It makes it funnier that not only is it a Godzilla film, but it is a Godzilla film set during the original era of the Godzilla film and the fallout from the nuclear blast in the year an Oppenheimer biopic comes out, which I don't think was planned, because the new Godzilla film, not the Kong one, the -1 one, it's from Japan. I want to look something up. I want to make sure about something. Made by... okay. I was gonna say it was made by Toho. And I was like, does fucking Toho... is Toho even around? Do they make the Godzilla films? They do. They do and they do. They are around. They do make Godzilla. Listen, fucking I think one of the biggest defining traits of the 2010 to 2020s in terms of creative and cinematic stuff is just fucking mergers. Merge. It's just fucking... and then this company bought this company, and then, you know... like, one of the biggest notes is just like, all this happened because a bunch of companies just started gobbling each other up. Like they were Pac-Man. Or DeviantArt. And you're like, so you mean cinematic universes? Yeah, kinda. But there's even other... I mean, there's lots of other consequences on the film field about that, so... Godzilla vs. Mario Sonic. Exactly. Universal does make the US Godzillas, you know? I don't know how they worked out that deal, but they're the guys in charge of the US Godzillas, so... they could just be like, fucking Mario-Zilla. He's like, whoa, is that a Bowser? And it's like, no, Mario. No, Mario, you need to get out of here. The radiation is off the chart. It's not fun mushroom times right now. It's put on a lead suit and duck for cover. This walking natural disaster is headed right through the Mushroom Kingdom. And even your magic mushrooms won't be able to stop him. I'm gonna throw him into the lava. He tries that. Was Shin Godzilla the first one to have a laser come out of the tail? Because Shin Godzilla focuses a lot on Godzilla's tail. It is notably longer, so it's always like hovering behind him in every shot. And then it plays into the whole like evolution theming of the movie. And then like a laser comes out of it at one point. So I was just like, is that the first movie that happened? So long, Zilla. So long, Godzilla. And it works because Godzilla is in lesbians with Mothra. Mothra, who I know is a girl. Godzilla, who may at any given point... Oppenheimer's cat may or may not be a girl, given if you're observing them and or any children at the moment. Oppenheimer-Zilla is or is not Godzilla created as a boy or girl. Oh yeah, I didn't even know. So I do think the idea in the original Godzilla film is that he's a mutated dinosaur. But again, they don't call him out as a T-Rex, and it's not even like unearthed as in like it was frozen or whatever. Godzilla was like in a sea cave apparently. It's just like this thing was alive recently. This isn't a dinosaur age dinosaur. This is a today age dinosaur, and we woke it up with nuclear bombs and it came to the surface. I think that part is skimmed over a bit because it posits that dinosaurs are still alive, and understandably, absorbing all the other information, you're probably gonna forget. It's like, oh yeah, they've posited the dinosaurs are alive. You know, another thing that's cool about Shin Godzilla is I don't necessarily think Godzilla design is bad in terms of like I can't, no way this is a prehistoric lizard. I can't believe it. It looks dumb. No. But you know, like sometimes it's not like I was just talking about, it's not evolutionarily accurate. In Shin Godzilla, he starts out with like a paddle tail. Like what you might find on a dolphin or a shark. My headcanon is that Shin Godzilla actually started out as a thrill shark. A frill shark. Look. You have thrills while watching the movie, but he starts out as a frill shark. Because he kind of looks like one at the start. And they're just like old fish mutated. And so just like, well, that's a lot of room to fill in the blanks. That's kind of the... I never really thought about it. I guess that's how you do a just like non-answer thing. There's lots of movies where they sloppily don't explain the science fiction or reasoning behind shit happening. But in a movie like Shin Godzilla, or just original Godzilla for that matter, it's kind of like the point of the film is like, just like, we don't fucking know. We're currently dealing with the fallout of the situation at the moment. We can figure it out if we're not dead in the morning. You know what I mean? It realistically gives a non-answer, because everyone's like, what the hell is happening? And everyone's collective response is, fuck if I know. Big lizard? Question mark? Like, pointing emoji? Like, fuck it, I guess big lizard now is what's happening? Imagine if an animal you had never seen before wandered into your house, and then the press approached you, being like, tell me, what is this? You must know. But meanwhile, there are some things. My mind goes back to Pointless Hub, because he did a mini series on the Bay Transformers films, and they just kind of talk about, they hand wave some stuff that kind of seems like it's supposed to be actually revealed, but then it's like not revealed because they just didn't write it down. So, always fun. Oh my lord. I want to talk about something I learned from watching essays about Michael Bay's Transformers, but it is inappropriate for stream. And again, a reminder, they're Transformer movies, so you can only imagine. That's also to give more of a higher rating for Pointless Hub's video on the matters than the movies themselves. I love how he, like, in the last one for the Bay Transformers, he's like, I had at least like one good thing to say about each movie. The fourth one being that it was dumb and kind of funny to watch. But he was like, fifth one, fucking, I have nothing. I don't know how it got so bad. There's a reason it was the last one done in that style and extant storyline. So, very fun. How's my Godzilla looking, guys? Is this a good bust shot of Godzilla? Yay or nay? What do you think? Sometimes I try to think about that to myself, but I have a chat right now, so... Thumbs up, thumbs down. Throw it in a pit with the lions and let it eat the lions, you know? I don't think typical gladiatorial combat would work on any form of Godzilla, misrepresented or not. I feel like I kind of am going for Shin with the kind of like classic design but done to be more scary. I don't know, I didn't want to just one-for-one copy Shin Godzilla. One of my friends in Discord is taken to saying that every drawing needs more boobs in it. I mean, you can kind of look at the reference pictures to get an idea. Less this one. I feel like this is the -1 one, and I do like this design. But I feel like they kind of took elements from the Monsterverse one along with the original design to try and make it. I do think there's parts I captured of it. The only problem being I was foreshortening the snoot. So that would be this. And that part turned forward kind of loses certain profile aspects a bit. But other than that, I'm a little happy with it, you know? Maybe I am proud of myself as a treat. as treat. I guess it looks fine. Huh. I have seen some online, like, fan content from Godzilla. And also, you know, I was just making that joke about the boobs, but I think if there's one defining trait between all three of these, is that they actually gave Godzilla just full-on pectoral muscles. So, I do think more than a ribcage, I do need actual pecs on there. Regardless, what was I just thinking of? Completely slipped my mind. Gone. And promptly forgotten. Oh yeah. Fan Godzilla content. I don't know, it's neat. There was one I was like... At least two... And one of them was Mathrick Broad. I feel like I'm just gonna look up Matthew Broderick Godzilla, and I'm gonna be like, is this the exact one I'm thinking of? And the answer will be yes. Correct. Let me look at -1's boob. I think they need a better name for Godzilla -1 Godzilla. Can we call him Godzilla Negative? Since that's what -1 would be. It has a lot of fish. Let me see. I'm gonna look up Matthew Broderick Godzilla. Yep, it's exactly the one I was thinking of. There it is. Man, that poster looked more like if... The poster I just saw of that film looked more like if Jurassic Park and Terminator had a crossover, and less like Godzilla. It was literally just like a T-Rex with a glowing red eye. And I hope I can do good old Goji better than that, you know? I'm like, oh. I think what I'm going to do is draw the pecs first, and then when I get to the hands, I just layer them over. It kind of does a thing where it's like, bop, bop, bop. Also, you know what? Let me ask Trom, at least. I don't know who else is here, but Trom, how was your day? I feel like I didn't ask you, and I apologize for that. I hope you had a good day. I was going Christmas shopping today. I was just trying to make sure I got everything done. Because I was like, I don't have presents for most people in my life. I must fix that. I now have presents for most people in my life. I need to round out Godzilla's giddies. I don't like that you can... I get to the Detroit Lions. Oh no. Oh, were you watching some football and you're like, I am very mad. I'm very mad at the football men right now. I apologize about the football men, Trump. My family's all about the Eagles. I don't know how the Eagles are doing right now. I don't know if they're in a game right now, but I haven't heard anything from upstairs, which is typically the sign of something happening with the Eagles. with my family and Eagles. I'm so sorry. I'm no sports fan. I know. I was gonna say I'm kind of glad I was the first child, because then I didn't come along and my dad was like, finally a son for sports. Not that he would have been like that to begin with, but it doesn't matter regardless, because me and my sister were born so close together that fucking he didn't get to decide which one of us would be doing sports. You didn't get to have those expectations for either child. There's barely enough room. They are in a game right now. I'm gonna take that as that they're losing, but that's just my that's my intuition speaking. So I think as a kid, I would mostly hear about the Eagles doing bad, like just most Philly sports teams doing bad. So that's kind of the basis I go off of, but I've heard they've done well in recent years. You know, we've gotten to some World Series, some Super Bowls. They are. Yeah, that makes sense. How about we talk about that superb owl? I'm sorry. I'm sorry I revert to that voice. It's just... Several reasons to apologize. Red Wings' last big heyday. So I'm a huge hockey fan. I apologize for the fact that you're like their last huge heyday. So regardless of how old you are now, they're not doing their hottest that you've seen. For me, it's kind of the opposite, I guess, you know? I grew up when the sports team of my hometown were not so hot, only for it to kind of turn around in some more recent eras. So I say that as the Eagles are doing bad. They lost it over 20 years and they had 4 times. Okay. So not necessarily they're bad now. More so they were doing they won a lot in a row back then. More ups than downs. I want to be like, I'm sorry I'm not sporty, but should I be sporty in Philly? Talking about the Phillies and everything. Would people be like, man, I love that Phillies fan on Twitch.tv? They haven't. That's good. Listen, I'm not a big sports guy, but any reason for more people to smile is a good reason for me. That's the thing, right? It's just like fucking, I don't care. So if it makes you exponentially more happy that they won than my team winning, then okay. I say my team. Meanwhile, I'm just like, they are my team via geography, you know? So I have a soft spot for them, but it's just, it's like they have an advantage that is not reliant on sports at all. I love when ball goes dog. Here's the thing, I do love going to an actual baseball game. I mean, I've seen recently people be like, baseball is boring. Not that that's a recent opinion, I don't think, just I've seen it recently. And like, kind of. But that's why I don't watch it on TV, you know? I watch it in the park where you can get snacks and just kind of hang out with friends and family. And when something cool happens, everyone starts screaming in real life. So I didn't know they frequently made rule changes to baseball, which is wild. That's wild to say. Oh, that's good. I will say, not having ties, I don't care if it's boring or not, I call horseshit on that. Baseball is a long game already, and it's like, in the last inning, in the last 5 minutes, you can make it exponentially longer. And be like, well, they managed to tie it up, so now we will all sit here for more. It's wild that that's a rule. I imagine it's still a rule. It's wild it was ever a rule. Also, I want to be clear. I tilted him because I want to make it kind of look like he's walking forward. I think that's probably... I think that's the most realistic aspect of Godzilla. You know what I mean? He... No matter... Even though they really thickened him up for -1, I think that's realistic. It's like... He's huge. He's got these tree trunks of legs, but he doesn't really, you know... He doesn't, like... Everyone's like, Godzilla doesn't run. He runs. But in a very relaxed motion, he's more waddling. You know? I'm not saying he can't move fast. What I am saying is that fucking his knees... his knees aren't existent, probably. I have a 20-year-old friend who has knees that lock up on them all the time. I have no doubt a giant lizard would immediately lose all use of their knees. It'd be like, the moment he's out of the water, Godzilla said the joints are for show. If I try to bend anything, there will be a crack like thunder. Or could you imagine? I don't know. I mean, because like whales have big bones, you know. Whales aren't like a lot of very tiny bones made into a big thing. They're big bones, and so are dinosaurs. But fucking, how big would Godzilla's bones be if like his knees were still just one apparatus? Regardless, they would be made of infinitely stronger stuff than any other bone substance on Earth. Because no matter how well they're structured, they would still crack under the weight if they were made out of normal bone material. I mean, like, this is what people are like, he's not realistic, and I still laugh at them, but... I mean, this is what I'm saying, right? I think it's realistic, because Godzilla survives being, like, thrown into the sun, and yeah, just to exist the way he does, you probably have to be built fucking massive. You have to be built so strong to be that big. Lest your own weight destroy you. I think it's fun to think about. That's me. That's Cahill. I like the idea. I don't know, because that's what I think about with a lot of fiction, right? Where someone will be like, just to do this one simple thing they're constantly doing, these characters would have to be ridiculously like overpowered and strong. And it's like, yeah, they kind of are. You saw them do wild stuff, you know? I mean, that's why Superman's gotten the way he has. Because they just kind of kept building on it. It's like, well, if Superman can do this, then Superman can do that. And if Superman can do that, then Superman can do this. That's just power. Now I'm just describing power scaling, you know? But... yeah, that's the thing. I feel like I've seen people talk about power scaling being toxic, and it kind of is when it interferes with the story, you know? I don't care if Luffy isn't a particularly strong protagonist in terms of wider anime and shonen. His story is the most well written, which is why I like it. So with that in mind, like, when someone's like, well, it doesn't matter because they're not that strong, then I'm like, that doesn't... Yes, if Superman... Now, I will say, I don't know if they've ever specifically power scaled different versions of Superman against each other, and I'm not talking like future versions where it's like Superman slept in the sun for 1,000,000 years, and now he can erase the planets with his mind. No. I mean, like, you know, ongoing Superman versus ongoing Superman. I like, and I believe I've said this on the stream before, I like DCAU Superman, just because I feel like he obeys the laws of physics. You know what I mean? I don't think DCAU Superman, from the animated show, is necessarily more susceptible to typical damage than your average Superman. But I think that he weighs an actual amount and can be thrown around because he can't just like stop himself, you know? I think I talked about that before, where the first time the animated Batman and Superman met, Batman threw him because you can throw Superman. He doesn't just stay there. He weighs he's strong, but he weighs an amount. And I think I like that presentation better, you know? Sure, you can't hurt him with blunt force objects, but if there's an explosion, he'll go flying, because he, you know, because explosion. You know how they do. The very nature of explosions. In that they are a force expelling outwards. So, I like that. And then you can do all your kryptonite yada 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 to nerf them all you want. Yeah. I think the only time power scaling actually becomes an issue to worry about in narrative is when it is tied to like the progression of strength. Of like, our heroes were able to handle this threat, why is this threat posing a problem? And sometimes there's a good solution to that. Sometimes there's not, and that becomes an issue. But outside of that, it's actually looking pretty good, honestly. I think so. DBZ? Eh. If we're talking like original DBZ, I've talked about this a lot of times, about how I think if you cut out DBZ at the Cell Saga, you get like one of the most solid manga anime ever. But then going into the Buu Saga, you have issues. And I think that's tied to both the fatigue and also kind of how much Toriyama wrapped up in the Cell Saga. And that's like, where do you go from there? If anything, I think the issue in power scaling in the Buu Saga probably comes from like, he was trying to make the stakes dire, which are hard to do at so far into a story like that. An issue many people run into. And then, like, he just kind of kept pulling stuff out to try and bandage over the solution. So you got your Super Saiyan 3s, your Ultimate Gohans, your Fusions. And sure, a lot of the stuff I just listed is very cool. But it doesn't mean it was well written at the time, so... It's just one of those things where it's like... It happened. I think... Like... That's why... I think that's part of why... Some people think DBZ was supposed to end at the Cell Saga. And also... Damn it, what was I thinking of? And also why it ended after the Buu Saga, you know? Like, maybe the publishers were like, yeah, we'll do something after the Buu Saga, too, when it started. But by the time it was, like, halfway over, they're like, we cannot, like... Maybe Toriyama or them admit it's like, we can't keep this going. We run this thing on fumes, baby! We don't got no more ideas. Got +1. Well, I mean, that's kind of what they did when they went into Super. But Super has its own issues. Not the least of which is amongst power scaling, but also along the lines that Goku and crew have to go to acquire such strength. You know? Because if Goku acted to do X to get Y, then why does he already have Z now? Oh, I made a pun. I made a pun! But yeah. That's like the big thing with like Super Saiyan Blue. You know. That also came out of nowhere. So they didn't fucking fix anything. They said we have 20 years. I mean, technically they didn't have 20 years for Super Saiyan Blue. They had like a little, like a couple months. Yeah. So, Trauma, if you're not into Dragon Ball, or if you're just like into the original series, here's how I see it. The original series is just like, that's it. Like, that's the core. That's Dragon Ball by Akira Toriyama, you know? And then, if you want, like, a sequel, then you have two routes to go through. You can either go with GT, the original Toei animated follow-up to the series, which has been widely panned, which is, some people argue against how good or bad it is, but, you know, its criticism is known worldwide. Or you can go with Super, which was a much longer kind of waited on follow-up that is overseen by Toriyama, but not written or drawn by him. A different team and mangaka take his kind of ideas and plot lines, and then fill in the blanks in art from there. Because I say you should cut off at the Buu Saga. That doesn't mean the Buu Saga isn't part of original Dragon Ball. It's just kind of sad it got there due to Toriyama's exhaustion. But that's the comic man for you, you know? I like me my comics. I like knowing about comic authors. I'm still trying to do my own comic, and it is actually very helpful to learn about what I want to be like Toriyama Sensei or whatever, but I don't know. I'm trying to. If I'm saying it, it's not try and be a weeb. it's to try and legitimately put respect on the man's name, because he's a fantastic draftsman and comic creator, and I legitimately learn from studying his works and stuff. So I feel like I should put some kind of honorific English or Japanese on there with kind of his influence on me and the wider world of art in general. You know, I think I'm going to close stream off, but to do so, I'll say that in the same way I was talking about how, like, yeah, Godzilla can be campy, but it also has its very serious moments, which I think are important, that some people might ignore because they're familiar with the camp. Kind of same thing with Dragon Ball. Because at the end of the day, I think Dragon Ball Z, the original manga by Toriyama and none of the extended material, is legitimately an emotion-driven, kind of gut-feeling narrative that has some true moments of catharsis in it, the likes of which some media can only hope to replicate. And with that in mind, that alone makes it valuable, let alone all the other artistic aspects that are that got poured into it among the original animes and manga's creation. How about we raid someone? You know, I'm pretty happy with this. I think it's a good work in progress, at least. At the very least, you can tell the whole idea from the sketch plus ink. But let us raid someone. I'm not sure who we should raid. Calvi Berry? Do I not follow Calvi? Why don't I follow Calvi? How about we do that? How about we raid a Calvi Berry? Why don't we? Calvi's been going for 5 hours. I'm still gonna raid them. Oh, wait. These include... Well, Calvi's playing a sensitive game. Anyone else? I don't know. Let me check some things, and we'll see who might be live. We can. Yeah. How about we raid Calvi? Just know there's a content warning for the game, so make sure you read that before sticking around for too long. But let's show some support, you know, for fellow good bean. Thanks y'all for coming. I'm just gonna be taking tomorrow off for multiple personal reasons. But after that, we're gonna be starting Bloodborne. Oh shit! Wait, Calvi's raiding Barry. Okay, let's just raid Barry. We'll raid Barry. No. Barry is it? Calvi said Barry's a good bean. But yeah, I'm gonna be taking off tomorrow for multiple personal reasons, and then after that, we'll be starting a Bloodborne run because I'm going to be both practicing for when I eventually speedrun the game, as I promised, during a charity stream, as well as getting the Platinum Trophy in it. So I hope I'll see y'all on Tuesday for that, because I'm going to have lots of fun with it. One of my favorite games. Until then, I'll see ya around. Bye!